Hi everyone. Today I want to talk a little bit about how I do my acrylic on canvas paintings, a little bit about the process, how I get it started, the materials I use in my process in doing so, and even if you're not using the same subject matter as I am, this is just kind of a traditional way to use acrylic paint, so I hope it's helpful for you. So generally, when I'm getting started, either using a brand new canvas, or as in this case, I reused a canvas because I had started a painting. I loved all my preliminary paintings, but I decided that I did not like how it was coming out on the canvas. So I gessoed over the first layer of this other painting I'd started. And so I did a thin coat of gesso over the painting, and because I paint in such thin layers in the beginning, it did not matter. So I put, I think, 2 coats of gesso over the whole canvas again. Then I did a very light drawing, and I did a very thin base layer of the background color. And so when I'm doing those early layers, I tend to use a lot of medium. And I generally use matte medium. And I also put out a little bit of flow medium. Now, the flow medium and the matte medium both will help loosen up the paint and make it flow easier. Matte medium will thin the paint out a little bit more, and it reduces sheen. So if you don't like, if you like shiny paint or you don't want to reduce the sheen, you can use gloss medium if you prefer it. I really like painting with medium rather than using water. Now, water will degrade your paint, and it's not the proper way to thin down paint when you're using acrylic. You really should be using some sort of medium, either flow medium, matte medium, or gloss medium when you're working with acrylics. And it really is a game changer if you've never used it before. I really prefer and use the Liquetex brand. Golden makes wonderful mediums as well, but I've been using the Liquetex brand mediums for many years, and even though they're both like premium products, I really do prefer the Liquetex. Everyone finds one they like best. I love Golden paints. I love Liquetex paint. I've used Windsor Newton paints for many years, but I really like, for mediums, I really am a Liquetex gal. So here in these early layers, I've put down, as I said, a very thin layer of the background, and I've been creating the very early layers of the background foliage on this piece. So I have a jardiniere, which is a little pot, and I'm filling it with foliage and flowers. I have 2 birds that are planned for this painting at this point. It's going to be kind of a folk art, tree of life style painting, and it's going to have, floral motif, and I'm planning to put some moths or butterflies flying, and maybe a table or some sort of thing for the pot of flowers to sit upon. I definitely always include some sort of a pattern or something either on the wall or on the table. Maybe I'll create a tablecloth. I haven't thought along that far yet. I did do some preliminary sketches for this painting, but sometimes, because I am kind of an intuitive painter as well, I do like to leave some of it up to my imagination as I'm going along, even if I do a detailed pencil sketch before I begin to paint. Because there's so much green in this painting, I wanted to create different hues of green so that there'd be a lot of variety in my greens. So I chose a very cool green, phthalo green, a very warm green, chrome green, and a permanent green light, which is kind of in the middle. And then I created some tints, tones, and shades using white, black, and gray mixed into these colors to create further variation. I also added cadmium yellow and cobalt blue into some of the greens to further alter the colors and change them up so that I had an even wider variety of greens. At this stage of the painting, I'm just getting down basic layers. I'm not worried about too much detail. So right now I'm painting the birds, which are wood pigeons, or rock doves, as they're also known. And I'm just putting in basic details. I'm not worrying about eyes or feet or any of that stuff right now. I'm just getting in their basic background colors, and I'm not worrying about details like feathers or anything like that at this point. I'm just trying to get just the basic colors put in. I'm using just neutral grays to put them in, and I'm going to just get the bodies in for right now, and I'm going to leave them be until I have more layers on. And that's how I'm treating the whole underlayer of this painting at this point. At this point, I'm trying to see where I think I might want to put a butterfly, and you know, I think I ended up taking this one out and painting over it and then putting it someplace else, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this one got taken out. But this is just all part of the process, and I don't really freak out if I decide to change my mind later about stuff. It's all part of the process of planning, and I don't really worry about it too much if I decide to change my mind this early in the game, because everything goes on so thin in the beginning, such a thin little layer, that I don't really worry about it too much. That's why I like to paint in these thin layers early on with so much medium, because they have they're only just a light glaze, so when you need to paint over it, it's not a big deal if you want to decide to change it. If you were to slap on a very thick layer, it would really show, but if you put it on in a thin glaze the way I do, you can change your mind as many times as you want, and it doesn't really matter. So, on my background here, I have the Portrait Pink or Light Pink by Liquetex. It's the same color, it has two different names, and it's a very warm pink. So what I did was I created a pink with pyrole red and titanium white. Now, titanium white is really the only white I use because it is a very strong white. It creates beautiful tints. The other whites will not make beautiful tints. They are too weak to dilute paint colors with. So Chinese white, zinc white, and the other whites that you see will not dilute paint the way titanium white does. So titanium white is really the only one you can use for that purpose. So I used pyrole red, which is a cool red. It's a synthetic red, and it's a really beautiful color. And I made a really, really beautiful light magenta. So using titanium white and the pyrole red creates a really beautiful tint of the pyrole red. And the reason that we do this is because it is a very cool color, a cool red rather than a warm red. And cool colors recede in the picture plane, and warm colors come forward in the picture plane. And so knowing this, you can kind of play with your composition a little bit. And even though red is a very warm color, it will still have a cool and a warm version, as do all colors. So knowing this, we can take the cooler red and use that to our advantage when we're using it in the background, and we can help push that background back in the picture even further away from the greens and have it really push back on the picture and sit in the background farther back where we want it. And so in this particular painting, I put a very warm orange for the table and had the cool color pink in the background, so it made it look like the wall was set farther back than the table, with having that really warm orangey color in the foreground. So that, using color to your advantage, just knowing a little bit about color theory can really be helpful when you're planning your compositions as well. So at this point, we've really come a long way in this painting and really changed up a lot of things. We've added the butterflies in a different place. We've taken the original butterfly out and added a little horse on the table. We've put in a table, which there was no table before, added a pattern. So we've changed up a whole bunch of the things that were there originally. And I mean, it may look finished right now, but there are still things that I see that I would like to probably polish at this point. Because sometimes when you're doing a painting, you could walk away from it at this point and just say it's done. But there's things that I see here that would make it look unfinished to me if I didn't fix them. So there's a lot of unevenness in the background that I would probably, like, especially up here. This I don't mind because it was layered. So there was a pink layer under here, which is kind of coming through in places, which I really like, because I love the bright orange layered over the pink, because it's vibrating, because the pink has been left around the objects, which I really like. So there's little pieces of it popping out and it's vibrating, and it looks really, really interesting. So that I want to leave, but there's still some places where it's uneven that need to be touched up. But here, I think the whole background should be evened up, because it's just not an even mix or even application in the background. And I think it would look more cohesive if it were fixed. And that's just stuff that makes it look more professional, I think. So there's little touch-up things like that need to be done. I'm not 100% happy with how this top part looks here. I may change a little bit of that. But otherwise, I mean, there's a few things that I see that I could touch up a little bit on. So there's just little tweaks in places where I can see that I want to just touch things up a little bit, and it will make it look more cohesive and more finished. And then I will be happy with it. And that's the last step. So a lot of times I'll get it to this point and maybe not do too much with it for a few days, and then those things will pop out even more. The other way to do that is to take a picture of it with a cell phone or a camera and look at it backwards,
in the camera because you'll be able to see those things pop out. You can use a mirror for that. A mirror will show you a lot of things that need to be touched up as well. So those are all things I do at the end of a painting. So starting out, like we talked about, the beginning part is very thin layers, and then as we build up, we're using less medium and more paint, and things get thicker as we build into the painting. And then the final touch-ups, we're going to go back to doing probably thinner layers again, and just, you know, touching up places that need to be touched up, and looking for things that need, places that need improvements, and where we want to make our final decisions on how things should look, and just really, you know, put the finishing touches on a painting. And that's about it, and how I would approach it.
Another thing I like to do to check the painting is to take a picture of it and then put it into black and white to check the values. So you can really test your values that way, and they'll pop right out in the black and white. If everything looks blends together, you know that your values are off. You don't have enough definition between light and dark. And that's the easiest way to test your painting, is to just take a picture of it with your phone and then put it into black and white or noir. And that's a really good test. And you can adjust your colors after you've seen it, or you may not have to. On this painting, what I've done is I've done a little tree of life on the pot, and then I've kind of mirrored that with arrangement in the pot, and that was done intentionally. So that's something that I kind of like to do, is like duplicate things. So, you know, you'll see repeating elements in my paintings sometimes, or a color repeated in another place, or a image repeated in another place. Yeah, that's just something I like to include. This painting is based on traditional folk art, so it has a lot of folk art elements, you know, the animals and the flowers, and the jardiniere, you know, the little pot with the plants coming out of it. This composition has elements that aren't completely symmetrical, and it keeps your eye moving across the canvas. Things are kind of set in a diagonal from the bottom right corner to the upper left corner, so it kind of keeps your eye moving across the canvas, which was an intentional thing that I set up with this composition. Last thing I do is I go over and touch up the entire painting. Any unevenness in the background colors or anywhere else, I go through and I touch everything up. Any inconsistency in the paint, I like to remix the background color and go over everything so that everything is uniform and everything looks really cohesive in the background. I touch up little things that I see popping out at me, and just bring everything together and pull together the painting so it looks really professional. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel grow, and I do appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here, and please come again soon.